guys, welcome to Watch Hobbyist channel. So today I'm going to show you the new Sea Dweller from Baselworld 2017. It's the 50th anniversary model, the SD43, and I'm going to show you comparisons in terms of size as well to some of my other watches. Okay, so we've got here the SD43, which is now basically the middle of the range of the Rolex divers. So as you'll probably know, a Rolex diver or any diver that's professional will generally be sort of 200 meters and above in terms of its water resistance, and the Submariner starts at 300 meters. This is 1220 meters, I think it works out. It's 4,000 foot basically, and then we've got the Deep Sea, which is 3,900 meters. So in terms of its size and its water resistance and pretty much everything, it's middle of the range. In terms of price as well, that is, although it's more towards the top end of the pricing of the Rolex divers than it is the lower end now. Certainly here in the UK at least, I'm not sure about the rest of the world. Now, the watch itself was quite controversial when it was first announced, and I was no different in thinking exactly what everybody else was thinking. I was thinking, A, it's too big, B, the red writing, yes, it harks back to the originals, but it doesn't sort of look so good on a current model. And finally, there's the cyclops. But then I just thought to myself that the day of release, usually I think that, and then I might as well just see if I can get hold of one, and then I can make my own decision. And I'm really glad I did that, and the reason is because I absolutely love this watch. I can't tell you how much I changed my opinion the very second that I saw it. First of all, it's a watch that's bang up to date. I mean, we've got the latest everything from Rolex here, and they've changed quite a few features which I'm going to discuss, and I do think it gels and works really, really well. It adds to the lineup very, very nicely, and I'm really glad now that I didn't see the reviews and start wanting one, because the waiting list is so crazy, I'm sure. There do seem to be quite a few coming through, but sometimes Rolex do this. They'll release like an initial couple of batches, this was in, I think, the second batch, and then they'll suddenly put a halt to that for quite a while. Now that's what they did with the Daytona and sort of a couple of other models I know of, but they may change it, I don't know, they may up the supply a little bit, but they do like the whole supply and demand thing, as we know. The watch itself is really, in terms of technical ability, much more up there than the previous models from Rolex. We have the new movement, which is the 3235. That is much more anti-magnetic than the previous versions, and it also has a 70-hour power reserve. I also personally feel this 10-year servicing thing that has been discussed with Rolex now would be much more appropriate for this watch, because they've designed the movement from the ground up, hopefully, and they've hopefully built that ability to service it very irregularly in there. In terms of accuracy, mine is definitely running very much within -2 to +2 seconds. I've timed it, but that doesn't really matter to me too much these days. I kind of just expect it, so it's not something that really bothers me if it's too much different from zero, and this one is absolutely fine. We have one big thing with the movement I want to add, is that I do feel they've made a difference to the clutch. So when you unscrew the crown and you adjust the date or you adjust the time, sometimes I've noticed on the older Rolex models that the clutch gets a bit stuck. I don't know if anybody else really notices it, if it's just me, but I've had quite a few Rolex now and they all seem to do it when you've changed like the date or maybe the GMT hand on certain movements and things like that. You then go to set the time and you can't always pull the crown out all the way. You sort of have to put it all the way back in, wind it a little bit, play about with it, and then eventually the clutch releases the crown and allows you to adjust the time. It's a bit annoying if you're trying to set the time perfectly accurately, but I've noticed with this watch, it winds very, very smoothly, so it is a different feel of wind to the other models that I've had before it, and the clutch does not have any issues whatsoever, which you would obviously expect. Now that could just be my watch, I might just be lucky, but I know with other Rolex it just seems to be totally intermittent, whereas I've not had it with this one. So I do feel like there's improvements in other ways to the movement that we maybe haven't been told about, but I would trust this movement absolutely. I think it's solid as a rock, and it does seem very accurate, as I say. Still got the chromalite to the plots and the hour hands and the little bezel pip here as well. We've got ceramic bezel going on, And one thing you should note with the bezel is it has a very, very sharp edge. So it's actually, I personally think, like, if they ever go back to James Bond doing the whole Rolex thing, it would be great for another scene where it cuts through a rope, because that alligator scene or whatever it was with Roger Moore and his 5512 or 5513 cuts through a rope or whatever it was, I do think this would be the perfect watch to actually just do that anyway, because it's so sharp. It's perfect if you're going to take this watch diving. I think it's absolutely the grippiest bezel of any watch I've ever had. It's totally more grippy than a Submariner or anything like that. It just has this sharp edge where your finger just sticks into it and you start turning it. It's super smooth when you turn it, of course, as you would expect. But with the other side of it, the flip side of that, is that you're probably not going to always be diving with it or timing things that require sort of grip on the bezel that are a matter of life and death. You are probably going to be wearing it with some kind of clothes, and you might wear a shirt or a jumper, and it may well snag your sleeve because it's quite sharp. So obviously over time that's going to create wear and tear on your clothing. So just something to be aware of. I know it's a silly little thing, but I did notice it quite early on that obviously being a thick watch, it is a sharp bezel and that might happen, but it's certainly not something that should put you off the watch. In fact, I think it's quite cool that it's so grippy, and they've actually really thought about the whole diving feature of this watch very much by the looks of things. The other thing with the case, it's 43mm, so it's pushing the boundaries of what a lot of people can wear, but I only have a small wrist. I feel it wears really, really well. I'll show you a wrist shot. The thing that with the previous model, so the SD4000 and also the Deep Sea, that actually has an overlapping end link, whereas this watch is very flush. So that will actually appease a lot of people, because there's an awful lot of moaning on the internet about this feature on the previous models where the end link would overlap the case. And for me personally, I feel that they've got the tolerances of everything here so absolutely perfect, you can't believe. It's for a mass-produced item, which, let's face it, it is, to get this sort of quality going on really, really shows. It's not like Patek or someone like that, who also get fantastic quality control going and tolerances and things, but they only make in the thousands of watches. Rolex make up to something like 3/4 or 1 million watches. So to actually get the tolerances like they do really, really does amaze me. There is a real thing about a Rolex, I hate it in some ways, because when people ask you what watch you're wearing, I always feel a bit pretentious saying, I've got a Rolex. But at the same time, there's a reason why they are so sought after, and it's not just about the fact that they hold the value. The reason they hold the value is because they are such good watches, so well designed, so tough, so reliable. Yes, you will always hear stories on the internet occasionally of an issue here and there, but generally there's a reason for that, whether it's down to wear or whatever. These are by far the most reliable watches I have ever owned, and that's why I keep with the brand. I must say that the downside of them being so popular is my purchasing experience of this watch, which really, really did sort of get to me a little bit. It was the fact that the dealer, because these watches are being sold on the secondary market, the dealer insisted that if I buy the watch, they have to keep the warranty card back for 6 months. And for me personally, I'm buying something, I'm just walking into a shop, I'm walking out of a shop, I should have my product and I should have everything that comes with it. So I do understand why they've done it, but it was the way that they did it. And I do feel that like this whole secondary market thing, unfortunately, does just breed other issues for genuine regular buyers of these sorts of watches as well. But if you're happy to accept it, or you have a nice dealer who's amicable and easy to deal with and nice, unlike who I dealt with, then there's no issue. I wouldn't say let it stop you buying this watch, because it's a great piece. It's a great watch that you could actually wear every day. I've seen people say that you couldn't wear this every day. I think I saw a Hodinkee review and they said it's not an everyday watch, but in my opinion it's absolutely fine for that. It's not massively thick for a diver. Alright, it's not as thin as Submariner. When I've measured this watch, actually I've got this caliper thing, I noticed that in terms of its sort of lug to lug, it's around about 50 millimeters more or less. This is not the most accurate vernier, I would imagine, but it's pretty much accurate. So we're talking about 50 millimeters lug to lug. And then in terms of height, it's without the cyclops, it's 15 millimeters exactly, according to that. And with the cyclops, it's in the region of, well, I've probably not got it bang on the center of the cyclops, but yeah, it's about another millimeter or so, so 16 mils. So, but really, it's only a 15 mil watch. If you wear this on your left wrist, then the sleeve is going to, of your shirt or whatever, is going to have to go all the way to there to then reach the cyclops. But it's wearable. It's not a type of watch you will wear with a suit, but I have actually worn it last weekend with a shirt and tie, and I thought it looked really good. It's got such a nice shine to the steel that it works really, really well as an all-round watch. 43 millimeters is a big case, but for me the main measurement is always this lug to lug amount. If you want to sort of look at the end link, just move that there, then you're talking sort of nearly 53 millimeters. So it does protrude a little bit, but it wears well on my quite round under 7-inch wrist. So I would imagine it's going to wear pretty well for most people, but don't be expecting this to be a tiny watch when you come to see it. Like I say, it fits in the middle in every single way in the range. And if we look at, say, an older Submariner here, well, if I measure this LV, so I just moved the camera there by mistake, but if I measure this LV now, we're looking at 47.3, so that's a big difference. And if we look at the actual sort of protrusion of the bracelet, so that's now 51ish, something like that. So, you know, that's a much more wearable sort of size. So that gives you some ideas, but really I think the lug to lug is absolutely fine to be the measurement of choice in terms of how the watch is going to wear. You know, so it gives you an idea, but I think 50 millimeters is around about what you should expect for the SD43, and if you can pull off like a larger watch, you know, with a 50 millimeter lug to lug, then you'll be absolutely fine wearing this. The other one is of course the Deep Sea, which has a 52 millimeter lug to lug there, and around about 56 millimeters at this pivot point of the Rolex bracelet. But again, I think it's more accurate to use the lug to lug measurement, so around about 52, so slightly longer. But also with this watch, another thing is the thickness. So if we look here, you know, we're sort of talking 17.5 millimeters thickness on the Deep Sea. If we compare it to the little LV here without the cyclops, so that's going to be just under 13, 12.6, and then with the cyclops probably around about another millimeter or so, yeah, so around about 14 mils, something like that. So that gives you some idea of the differences. And one more watch I can compare it to here is my GMT, which I absolutely adore. And this will give you some idea, I think, of the Submariner case as well, because the Submariner, I think, has a very similar case to the GMT. Lug to lug, we're around about 48, so 48 mils. And in terms of height on this watch, yeah, so just under 12 millimeters without the cyclops, and 13 or so with the cyclops. So, you know, all in all, I don't think the SD43 is a massive watch. I think it fits nicely in the range, and I also think that if the Deep Sea didn't exist, it would actually sort of give Rolex a much more balanced range in terms of the divers. So you'd just have the Sea Dweller 43 and you'd have the Submariner range, and I think that would work really, really nicely. But it's nice to have the choice. Whether they'll discontinue the Deep Sea next year, I'm not sure. Who knows? It to me makes sense as a move, and it would also be good for anybody that owns a Deep Sea, of course. But we will see, time will tell, and it will be probably next March 2018 before we actually know. So I hope you've enjoyed this look at the Sea Dweller. I hope I've given you enough details to make a decision if you can actually get your hands on one. I know they're on the grey market, secondary market, for a lot of money. If this watch was those sorts of prices in the first place, I would feel it is actually worth it because of all the extras inside there and the way that it's been designed. but I would absolutely try and get one on RRP if you cannot wait too long, because it makes a lot of sense at that money. It's silly to say so it's a lot of money, but it does make sense in my opinion in 2017. So thanks for watching this video. Make sure you give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Please make sure you subscribe, and I will see you again very soon.